And welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Nyambura and this is 100 on Books. Today I'm going to be doing the first in what I hope will be many weekly roundup videos going forward, and this is for the week that ended on the 24th of September 2023. So in that week I read 4 books. I finished 4 books, and the first of those was Forget Me Not by Alison Derrick, which I did as a hybrid read, and it's read by Natalie Naudus. This book follows these 2 girls. One of them has a traumatic brain injury and forgets the past 2 years of her life. During that time, she fell in love with a girl in a very small, very conservative town, and they were planning to leave the town and go to California. They're from the eastern side of the US, and California is on the west, right?
Yes.
California is to the west, right, of the US. Yes.
Yeah.
So they're planning to go across the country. I'm talking to Tom, my brother, in case you're wondering who I'm talking to. Yeah, so they're planning on going across the country to live out their lives, to live freely and openly as lesbians. And so she has this traumatic brain injury and she forgets the past 2 years of her life, which includes this relationship, these plans, and so on. And the book is basically her navigating her life with this amnesia and her girlfriend trying to figure out a way to essentially get her to fall back in love with her. As I said, in a very conservative town where folks are not going to look too kindly on 2 girls being in love, 2 girls planning on having a life together now that they're adults, and so on. It was really charming, very sweet. I read this because it's on the National Book Awards long list for young adult literature, and I really enjoyed it. If you enjoy queer literature, young adult writing, YA, if you enjoy books about love, finding love, losing love, regaining love, I think you'll enjoy this. Next was The Lost Year, a survival story of the Ukrainian famine by Catherine Marsh, which I did as a hybrid read, and it's read by Anna Fickman, Christopher Gebauer, Jesse Wilinski, and the author. This is another National Book Award pick, and it follows 3 main characters. One who is living in the 21st century, actually living during the time of the pandemic, his grandmother with narrative in the present, his great grandmother, sorry, with narrative in the present and in the past, and a third character who's integral to the telling of the story. And it's about this historical event, the Ukrainian famine, that was caused by certain political and policy decisions that were made in the Soviet Union in the 40s, I believe. I've become horrible at remembering things, honestly and truly, but and so the boy who's living through the pandemic is being told stories from the famine and that time in Kiev by his grandmother as they shelter in place and so on. It's a very interesting historical fiction book, and it made me learn a lot of things. I don't think I've read a book aimed at children, or generally, I can't remember the last time I read a book that had any of its setting in the former USSR or parts of that part of the world. And so it was interesting learning all of these things, and the twist in the tale was something I anticipated, but which was not any less powerful for having been anticipated, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that's The Lost Year, a survival story of the Ukrainian famine. Next was Simon Sort of Says by Erin Bao, which is narrated by Will Collier. I did this also as a hybrid read. So this book follows Simon, the titular Simon, as he moves to a new town called Green and Bear It, where the internet and radio signals and so on are not allowed because there are a bunch of astrophysicists doing research there. And he this is actually the fourth book I finished. I know this because I remember it the most clearly. But anyway, yeah, so he comes into his new school with a narrative about why they moved to this small town, which nobody generally is too keen on moving to. And he soon makes two friends, one who's team farm, because the town is divided into two sections basically. Like team farm is folks who make their living from farming and so on because the land there is cheap. And then there's team science, folks who are there because they work in one of the scientific endeavors that happen in the town. So he makes a friend from each of these teams, and during this time he tries to be himself with them, but there's a key part of himself that he's not sharing with them. And over time, even we slowly find out what it is that he's not so much hiding as trying to keep away from them. And when they find out, it's tough for everybody involved because it's tied to a highly traumatic event that happened to him and which impacted not just him but the community he was part of. And yeah, they show him so much kindness, even as they navigate what it is to know somebody who's gone through as traumatic an event as he has, which is the traumatic event in question is one that is sadly not uncommon in the US. If you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you probably have a sense of what I'm talking about because it has to do with children and schools and policy. And so that's something to know going in. I'm just going to say it right now. It's school shootings. So he's survived a school shooting, but this is something he's trying to run away from when he comes into this new town. And so when his friends find out, it's tough for all of them. But as I said, they show him so much kindness and generosity, and that's what makes this book so memorable and such a lovely book to read. Lastly, but as I said, this was actually the second last book I finished during this week, was Big by Vashti Harrison. This is the third of the four books I read this week, and it's also actually all these four books were on the NBA long list for young people's literature. Big is the shortest of the ones I read because it's aimed at very young readers, so it has big illustrations and not a lot of text. It follows our main character as she navigates being called big and basically being regarded as unwieldy by her teachers, by other people in her community, and so on, despite her size having been a thing in her favor when she was younger. So it's a lovely story encouraging kids to feel confident in themselves, feel confident in their bodies, and yeah, show up big or not, which I mean, I think we could all do with that reminder, whatever age we are. So that's it. That's the four books I finished in the week ending 24th September 2023. I hope to be back soon talking about the books I'll have finished in the week ending 1st October 2023. Please like, share, subscribe, and all the good things. And thank you so much, as always, for watching, for subscribing, for sharing, for sticking with me, even as I have been making my way back to, the world of booktube and so on. Thanks and bye.